Let's have that one. Yes, this is a meeting that gets recorded and gets posted on the website. So we've just started the recording now. If anyone is uncomfortable with that, please let me know and we will stop the recording. You can do that on a side chat if you're not comfortable saying that to the group. I'll generally that bit passes quite fast. The other thing that we've just been asked to do, a couple of people were saying that it's still difficult to hear, either because they've got people in the background or just the nature of Zoom meetings is a little bit challenging. So there's just a little quick how-to guide here for how to show ongoing captions, with the obvious caveat that captions are auto-generated and real-time, so there may be some mistakes in that. So if you are doing captions and find someone saying something weird, you're welcome to ask for a correction as we go through. Any other thoughts on that before we go in? Brilliant. I've actually just on the side, I was checking one of the slides and I've just noted a discrepancy in one of the action slides. So can I ask the team that when we get to slide 11, I will share that one live myself, and then we'll flick back into the back of the deck. So whoever's running the deck, just to be aware when we get to slide 11, if you could come out of the deck and I'll go straight into it. Apologies, team. Right, general updates. Next slide. So as we sort of mentioned with Gail being here, we held 12 community events across June and July. 2 of those were additional. We were planning 10 originally, and we had some feedback from the relevant LRGs that they wanted events and additional events in Cambridge and Bletchley, which we were happy to provide. We had 2,300 attendees over the course of them, and I think the Bedford one was one of the better attended. Some of them were really not very well attended at all. You won't be surprised to know that sort of westwards of Bedford, the numbers tend to drop off as you go further towards Oxford, but the Bedford event was very well attended. It was fantastic. And we've also done several videos which kind of pulled together the questions that were being asked in those sessions, which if anyone in your area is interested in having a look at those, you probably know the answers yourselves to all the questions, but if anyone in your area wants to understand directly, and I must directly apologise that I didn't have a hairbrush for many of them and looked like a bit of a state, but the answers we're giving are quite straightforward. If you've got any questions about those, please let me know, but I would definitely encourage you to point your parishioners, if that's the right word, toward those videos if they've got questions about that sort of thing. The Accessibility Advisory Panel, which we've spoken about before, and it's worth reminding everyone, I think, that the attendees for the Accessibility Advisory Panel were in part found due to conversations with LRGs. So it's something that I do want to keep updating the LRGs on. We recently held the 3rd meeting where the panel met key people from inside EWR and carried on giving their views on the design and development requirements as we go forward, which has been really helpful for us to ensure that the railway is genuinely accessible for everybody. We are going to continue having those meetings as we go forward. I think I'm right in saying they're quarterly at the moment, and we'll continue having those throughout the length of the project. Those are the main updates. Of any sort of questions or thoughts on any of that before we crack on? Then I suggest we crack on. So I think this is the moment where I'm going to share my screen, and it won't look as good as when Tabitha was doing it, I'm afraid. Here we go. So just to say that the ongoing sort of arrangements around the Be Fair meeting, understanding that this itself is not a Be Fair meeting, so we shouldn't really get into the details here, but just to say that is being arranged. There was a date in, we're now unable to make that because of train strikes, which means that Beth won't be able to come. There were several meetings in the same days, I'm sure you understand, so she wasn't unfortunately able to come up. We'll find a new date for that. The second line here, we were asked by one of our attendees to provide an overview of how EWR Co has considered costs of Route E. Technical note was uploaded to the website, I believe, a fortnight ago, possibly longer. And I believe the link was circulated to this group. Sarah, is that correct?
Yes, sorry.
Fabulous,
Yes.
thank you. We were asked to provide a Google satellite map of how EWR and Black Cat interact, which we were happy to do and have now provided. I'll just make that a bit bigger. Sorry, this is my bad. I told you my skills at driving this weren't as good as Tabitha's. We were asked to share the explanation on the shifting route north of Wilden. Again, we did circulate that. We provided information on how the red line boundary and consultation area will be defined. That was provided, I believe, Sarah, jump in and let me know if I'm talking nonsense, but I believe that was shared as text. Is that correct?
Sorry, Hannah, I wasn't listening to that part. I'm sorry, I was coughing. Can you repeat?
That's so, I really think you need to go and get a snooze. Tabitha's telling me yes on the side chat. That was shared.
Sorry, guys.
Thank you so much. Honestly, you're not well, my love. And then lastly, AWR code to confirm if a square kilometre sort of a measure could be added to the online maps. And again, we were happy to do that. So any comments or questions on these before we shift on to the outstanding actions?
You weren't actually able to put a square on the map, were you?
We have done that. I believe we have done that.
It says, unfortunately, it's not possible to do it.
That is intriguing. Sarah's just stepped away. I apologise for that, Peter. I thought I was on top of that particular issue. Let me just double check. Okay, I'm going to take that away to understand myself a bit better why that wasn't possible. And I will get back to you because I don't feel that that's beyond our capability. So I feel like I want to understand that one a bit better myself, Peter, if I may. I do apologise. That one I think I hadn't read the answer because I felt that was let me take that away. That feels like something we should be able to do. So I'd like to understand the technical reason behind that.
Hannah, could I go back to action number 2?
Of course.
I found that a bit difficult to understand. It says EWR code to review information provided by an attendee and provide an overview of how they've considered the cost of the route E. When the introduction to that means nothing to me. I can't remember anybody putting some information in or providing information which was taken away to be discussed.
Sure. So we were specifically asked, I believe this was a specific question around it was I understand it was brought up in it was Mike Barlow,
right,
who requested some specific information, which we responded to in a technical note that's been added to the website. So it's part of the technical note for the Be Fair alignment, and I will put the link to that in the chat for this meeting now, so it is there. Which this is now on the website. I can't get back into the meeting.
I'll put it in the chat now, Hannah.
Thank you. I'm really bad at driving this. Good, great.
I think my comment really is that once again they use the word attendee because it's
we were having that discussion just before the meeting started, actually. I think that's a hangover from sort of the previous approach and the approach of other groups. So let us this is insane. I can't get back into the meeting. I'm really bad at this. So I apologize for that, but I'm happy to confirm that that was in response to a request directly from Mike Barlow.
that would be fine. Yeah,
of course. Thank you. Okay, I'm somehow back in the meeting, but I've jumped out of the slide deck. Are there any other questions? I think we can go back into item 12 unless there's any other questions or comments.
I know we can elaborate a little bit more on the comment about the map.
Yeah.
We did speak to the technical team, and unfortunately it's not possible at the moment with the software they're using because of industry standards, but we will go back to them and see what else can be done with that.
Yeah, let's get more detailed explanation out of that and circulate that. So can we put that meeting is still that item is still outstanding? That's probably for my benefit more than anything, because I'm quite keen to understand that. It might be something that we can retrofit over the top, as long as we can put a caveat saying that the precise, there may be some precision issues, but I take their point. Actually, these things are that the software sometimes has these odd quirks. We have a raised hand from Gordon.
Yes, Hannah, before we go on, can we discuss some of the comments from meeting 11 notes?
Absolutely, let's do that. We actually jumped a slide as well. We jumped slide 12, I think. But yes, we can definitely discuss some topics. What would you like to discuss, Gordon?
Well, one of the points I raised in my email was item 3.6. Hannah, you mentioned that added that many other points raised in the previous consultations have informed designs such as revisiting the heights of embankments and viaducts and re-evaluating the design at various level crossings. And these in turn have led to changes from the design proposed in 2019 and 2021. Well, as far as this LRG group is concerned, that's irrelevant, because to my knowledge, there are no level crossings between Bedford and certainly the East Coast Main Line. If there are, we need to know about them.
So no, you're entirely right. It was a list of things, a list of changes that were relevant across the whole route. And it was really some of the larger changes that were made were the ones that I was kind of ticking off, because the smaller changes are really ones for the individual design teams to be able to rattle off. But on a more macro level, I was talking about some of the larger changes. So I think you're probably right that the level crossing one, unless you particularly sort of go and drive or take the train through those places, will be less relevant to you. But I think the embankment and viaducts issue is one that has come up in here before. So I would say that one's probably more relevant.
Right. The other one was a comment I made about the reservoir to the east of Colston Road, and the EWR Co's response was that it'll all be looked into. The particular farmer concerned had a meeting with somebody from EWR Co recently, and he discussed this. And they said, oh, we don't worry about minor details like that at this stage. Well, the stability of a reservoir where a railway is going close to is not what we consider a minor detail. Was the chap talking out of order?
No, I wouldn't have thought so. I think that there I'd be interested to know Katie's view on this, but my view, my instinct is that obviously that's not a minor issue, and that's if they actually did use that wording, that would be interesting. But I think that there's levels of certainty that you can have, that issues can be sorted through, and I think that maintaining the stability of a reservoir is probably one where the engineers have a high level of certainty that can be accommodated in the design. Katie and Mo, though, I think both of you have more expertise in these areas than I do, so I wonder if you could jump in.
Yeah, I was going to say it's probably over to Mo, but I guess I'm curious about who it was that was saying that. Where kind of, could you elaborate, Gordon, on who that was? Sorry, do you know the name?
I don't have a date. No, I can get.
I think that would be helpful, and we can work out.
I will ask the question and see if I can get a date and a name.
That'd be very helpful. Thank you, Gordon.
Thanks.
Mo, I'd be interested to know if you have any thoughts on
I mean,
that.
the only thing I can come in and say is that it's not a minor issue. I mean, these kind of things are very close to our hearts. If the railway line is close to a reservoir and there are concerns with the structural integrity, the onus is on EWR is to demonstrate that is, we're not going to fundamentally have an impact on the structural integrity of it. That work is done in stages. and will take place between now and when we actually get consent. So yeah, I think, you know, if that is the message that was conveyed to you, it is not the right message. We are duty bound to actually look at the structural integrity of all structures on the route. And that was part of a presentation I had given previously on code of construction practice and how we minimize impacts during construction. So very happy to give you more information on that offline if that is something that would put your mind at ease.
Right, okay, but I will try and find out who it was that was the guilty party. Okay, thank you.
Fantastic. Sorry, I'm just emailing a colleague about the kilometre thing. Any other questions or thoughts before we move on? Thank you. So then just finally, there was a request to look at the list of proposal items the team are working on and expect to share at the statutory consultation. I think, as we sort of touched on lightly last time, there isn't a set list of products and documents that you would necessarily expect to see at the next round of consultation. So that's something that's ongoing internally. And we will update you when we have more information on that. Katie, I wonder if you've got anything to add, as this is definitely your wheelhouse.
I think there's a few things that are set out in legislation that you will definitely be seeing. One of them is the PEER, which is the so just let me know, sorry if you can't hear me. But one of them is the PEER, which is the preliminary environmental impact report. So that's an early doors assessment report for environment. So the potential impacts that will definitely be there. That's set out in legislation for statutory consultation. But then you'll expect to see the standard consultation type documents, a summary of the route and what we're proposing, the consultation feedback form, so you can share your feedback. But yes, that's all currently going on right now to decide what materials will be available at StatCon.
Brilliant. Any other thoughts or questions before we move on? Fabulous, thanks so much. This is, as I say, the topic I've been really excited about talking to everyone about. And I noticed we've had an extra sort of couple of people join. So welcome to Peter, welcome to Alistair. If anyone else is in and I haven't seen, I apologise, but very much welcome. To those people that have just joined, please feel free to come off mute to show your camera. And indeed, I would definitely encourage it for the next section if you feel comfortable doing so. This section for us, obviously, we have had 2 consultations now. We've done a lot of desk research into who is in the local community and how to find people. We've used media, we've used the LRGs, we've used all manner of different approaches to try and reach people. I think that work is never done. That work will be ongoing for the life of the project to find new people to talk to, new groups to talk to, and especially as we get into some of the more specialised area of design, it's really important that we go down every avenue that's open to us. At the moment, we're at this stage, so we've had 2 consultations, as you can see, and our route update announcement earlier in the year. But we've got a lot left, so a lot still to go. We've got engagement, we've got statutory consultation, we've got an examination period with the DCO. We submit the DCO, and then we go into construction, and all of these require us. And I say require, we want to make sure that we're talking to as many and varied people as we possibly can. So I'm very keen that we get as much of your knowledge and your local understanding as we possibly can at this stage in the project, and indeed at every stage as we go through, which is really what today's session is about. Can I pop to the next slide? So what we're going to do is we're going to have this session today where, if we were in person, imagine that this is sort of post-it notes and all that kind of stuff. So we're kind of going to do the equivalent here. It's kind of hard to get the same energy in a Zoom call, but we'll try. We want to understand all of your suggestions for who and how we can talk to in the community, and then we'll have a look at what we're already doing and see where we can improve. see who we're not yet talking to, who we could talk to, and make sure we're in that space. So as we go through to the next section, please throw your ideas and suggestions in any way you feel comfortable. We've got the team that they'll be writing stuff, they'll be looking at the chat bar. Raise your hand, don't raise your hand, whatever feels comfortable, but I'm really keen that we kind of get some good ideas out there. So these are some ideas. These are meant to be indicative, not prescriptive. So please think as big as you like or as small as you like. If there's a specific person in your local community you think is worth us talking to, that's fantastic. We're looking for, just as wider thoughts as you've got. We've had 3 or 4 of these sessions already, and we've had some really wonderful feedback. So I'm not saying it's a competition, but, we've had some really good feedback already from some other areas. Environment groups. Now, obviously, we have an environment team. We have statutory groups who we talk to, who we know, and we've got a big tier of groups underneath that. But there will be ones that we haven't heard of. There will be ones that are very unique to your community. Community groups, that could be anything. That could be from parents, work groups that we don't know about. That could be business groups that we're not yet in touch with. That could be anything really. So any community groups in your area that you know. Local charities as well, they are very difficult to find often through desk research. It may be that they act as a charity, but they don't yet have charitable status, and they're even harder to find. So those kind of groups and passions, and accessibility groups as well. So we want to make sure that we are talking to not just the people that we can find through desk research, the people that were recommended by the local authority, and we will be having this process with the local authorities as part of the statement of community consultation, but that we're really going to the horse's mouth, the lion's den, the source of all information. So we're talking to you. So please think really broadly, don't be constrained. I'm going to try very hard to shut up, which, as you all know, is difficult for me. Transport groups, brilliant. Gordon, chuck them at us. So the team are just going to take notes now. So let's see if anyone's got some views, and then we'll try and keep the conversation moving. So Gordon, can you kick us off?
Well, I've just posted a note. Are there any train spotting groups?
Brilliant idea.
That's sorry, Hannah, I'm jumping in. This is part of my job as well. So it's really useful to hear your feedback and your local knowledge. So train spotting groups is a really interesting point. It's not a statutory consultee, so it's good to hear these types of groups. So if you have any suggestions for local to you train spotting groups, that would be great. Just drop them in the chat. But we can also do some research. We can go on. Yeah, go on. Go on, Gordon. Sorry. We can.
Well, we're talking to parish councils, which is the important one here. You're also talking to environmental groups, CPRE, etc.
I go back real quick to the parish groups, because I think that's a brilliant one. One of the things that we'll be sort of talking about later as well is the methods to talk to them, and I know that parishes do tend to have newsletters and that kind of thing. Is that a good space for us to be involved with in the newsletters, in kind of giving information through in a specific way or in a specific thought? Are there any offshoots or committees of your specific parishes that would be helpful for us to understand? I will say this is an opportunity to feed in this, so if this is an ongoing conversation, so please don't think that you can't reflect and come back to us later.
No, there is a local newsletter, but it covers a couple of parishes here. Excuse me. So it covers both Boston, Chawton and Colton, and also Roxton. So
I think that would be really helpful. So let's make sure we've got access to that newsletter. We'll come back to you, I think. Thank you. Nikki, you've got your hand up. I can see that so British Horse Society, brilliant. Yes, we have spoken to the British Horse Society quite a lot. Ramblers, is that like an individual Ramblers or like the Rambling Association? Or
there's a Rambling Association and there's local groups.
Yeah.
So I mean, when you consider all the rights of way that are going to be decimated, they're going to have, I should hope, a jolly good opinion on that.
Yeah, we've got both the Ramblers Association and local, but if there's any kind of really local to you, I think if you could suggest them in the group chat, that'd be great. Just to make sure that we're not missing anybody off.
The thing is, Hannah, I mean, what are you going to say at these communication events? Because all the other ones that, you know, we diligently go to, no one can answer our questions, and it's just the same stuff all the time.
Yeah, Nikki, I mean, I'm really happy to have a question about that kind of stuff, but we have had these conversations before. I'm really comfortable opening up and having a conversation about the events, and actually the next section of this is definitely about events. But in order for us to be able to talk to people and find them, alert them that there are consultations coming, and there are going to be consultations coming, we really need to know who they are, and we're trying really hard to reach as many people as we can, and that's kind of what this section of the conversation's about. We are really happy to talk about that, but I just, with a sort of a chair hat on rather than with an EWR co hat on, it'd be really helpful if we could just try and think of some people. I mean, to your point around knocking on doors to understand, so we have spoken to directly, for example, all impacted landowners, but I wonder if there's something more specific that you're talking about there that you feel we've missed.
Oh, I guess it's just going back to Gordon's point about you know, the chap who was affected with his reservoir, and he kind of just got a pretty, you know, off the cuff remark, really. It's I don't know, it's just not right, is it? That's the thing. I mean, what's you actually saying to these people? You know, yeah, we're going to come through, and but we can't really give you any more information, and you know, we can't give you any more details yet how it's going to crumble the sides of your reservoir.
Yeah,
but
so
don't
for
worry about
example,
that, you know.
I think Alistair's just put an interesting comment in the chat. It'd be great if we had confidence about rights of way being maintained during construction and how they'll be enhanced post-construction. That's a really, really good point, and that's something that we'll be able to do much better, and we'll be able to have those conversations and really understand the priorities of local rambler groups, local horse rider groups, local, you know, parent and child groups, if we know who they are and if we can find them. So Alice, yeah. your I think your point is really pertinent, which is we don't yet know what it is that we're proposing. We're not in that position. But what we want to be able to do is, when we are in that position, we want to be able to send an email, pick up the phone, create a meeting, have those people around the table as quickly as possible, so that we can talk that kind of stuff through with them. So what we are trying to do here is get into a position where we can have conversations as quickly as possible. So I take the point, Nikki, that, you know, to date you've personally felt that there's not been the information that you needed out there. What we're trying to do is to make sure when that information does become available, we can move as quickly as possible in including people in that and getting their views in quickly, so that we can use it to hopefully affect change. So yeah, that's kind of what the session's for.
Yeah, no, thanks for that, Hannah. And I know we're our specific local residents group here. But if we go back to Alistair's point, the people in, you know, we're actually quite aware of what's going on and stuff, because we've taken an incredibly active interest. People in Bedford town and the immediate area have not got a clue of the disruption that is going to happen. How can we get in touch with them?
That's
make them understand.
Brilliant question. And I think we've, as I said before, we've got a lot of different methods that we're using, but as representatives of local people, you might be looking at us going, well, goodness sake, why didn't they use the, you know, the smoke signals that we all use, or the, you know, this Facebook group that we've all got? What are those things that would be helpful for us to be using to reach people? It's classic what in DCO terminology is called the hard to reach groups, and they're called that because that's exactly what they are. So are there any of those? It's a really, really good point you raised, Nikki. How to reach those people? We can go away, we'll do a lot of research, we'll do a lot of work to make sure we reach them, but there may be stuff that you know that we don't know, and I think that's kind of where we are. So with that specific example, do you have anything in mind that you would like us to do in that space?
I honestly think you should be contacting ward councillors of the areas in Bedford that are going to be deeply affected, absolutely deeply affected.
For avoidance of doubt, ward councillors definitely on the list. We email them. They're invited to
Yeah.
at least
How
attend.
can we make them understand then?
Good question. And I think again, we do talk to them. We do give them information. Are there things that you think we could do more of that might engage them a little bit more?
Well, I mean, I can try at a council level to just get people, you know, aware and interested. But because honestly, this is just going to hit them like a flipping wrecking ball. It really will.
Okay, I mean, we slightly disagree on that point, but it's a helpful, sort of a helpful thing to know that there's a space there. Alistair, you've had your hand up for a while.
Oh yeah, sorry. Can you hear me okay?
Absolutely.
Yeah, brilliant. I'm just a little bit concerned about this in terms of the public rights of way and Nikki's point, and then your response to that, Hannah. It's pretty clear that East West Rail could make a statement today, now, saying that all public rights of way will be maintained during construction and they will all be reinstated or enhanced where opportunities are to enhance the existing rights of way system without fail, right? You don't need to go out to talk to other hard to reach groups or engage with anybody else to do that. You could make that statement. Now, the fact that they don't, or East West Rail basically is always talking about, oh yeah, we're going to engage and every question's a good question and everything is, so wonderful. Well, there are some basic things that could be done now, today. You don't need to engage with anybody else. You can make some clear statements about things, and the public rights of ways is a great example, that will give some people some confidence that East West Rail are not just kicking the can down the road until it's too late. And so all the engagement and all the stuff, it's all froth, nothing substantial is ever happening. And then suddenly you're going to be, wham, we're going to do this. And by the way, no, we weren't able to do that. And we weren't able to do the other. And there's a whole bunch of other things that we weren't able to do. Because that's what it feels like to me. It feels like you've got so much time and you've had so much time. And yet there's no categoric statements coming out about what you're actually going to do and how some of this disruption is going to be avoided. So, I share Nikki's frustration on that. And I think we need more substantial statements, and you don't need to engage anymore or wait any longer to do that.
So I'd just push back a little bit on some of those things. Until we have a design, until we actually have an approved design that's gone, that we have a preferred design right now, we don't have a final design. And because we don't have a final design, we don't have a construction methodology. It would be disingenuous to say that we know how we're going to build that. It would be incorrect. And
yeah, okay. Let me just sorry. Can I just come back on that? Because what are the design criteria then? You say you haven't got a design. So what criteria are you building into the design? Are you building in from day one the fact, for example, as we're talking about public rights of way, that they will be maintained and enhanced? Is that part of the design criteria?
Yes. So I'll just bring Mo in at this point. I wonder if Mo, if you could jump in at this point.
I think I just to say I completely understand kind of the level of frustration. I think there's things that we can go out and say publicly and things that kind of most infrastructure projects will undertake anyway. I think when it comes to the topic of prowls, I mean, EWR's position would be to where reasonably practicable, maintain pedestrian access for cyclists and equestrians and those affected. And in many cases, if a prow needs to be stopped up, we need to go out and speak to landowners and see how that affects them, and to design that prow and kind of look at the the potential changes to the prow. And I think it is the stage of the project we're at, and it is the process we're undergoing that actually does clarify all those things. Really, I think that's what I wanted to come in and say. But certainly, I think those kind of things will emerge as part of the development of the scheme, and similar commitments would have to be made on a range of issues. So I don't know if I've answered your question or if anyone from the team wants to come in and kind of complement what I said. But really, I think just kind of, work closely with landowners to try and see what changes need to be made to prows, and where reasonably practicable, not discontinue those, and even in some cases where required and necessary, may offer improvements to those as well. But as I say, these are generic principles. The details of each design development will have to be discussed on a case-by-case basis.
And I think that's, for me, the really interesting point, and one of the reasons for this conversation is that it's important to discuss these on a case-by-case basis. And it's important that we understand in that particular area the usage and the, if we say keep a public right of way open during build, for example, you might roll your eyes when I say that, but what does that mean? Does that mean having a diversion in place? Does that mean having stepped access? Does that mean what does that mean in practical terms to the local community? Because some local communities will have very clear views of what that means. That there is devil in the detail. And I think this conversation we're trying to have today is trying to work out who the right people are to have those conversations with. Local schools, that's brilliant. Thanks, Nikki. Yep, I think local schools, journeys to and from school, that's really helpful. Businesses, I think, also a good one. That we've spoken to some sort of local businesses. We're obviously in touch with the larger business groups, the chambers and that kind of stuff, but it'd be really interesting to know if there are smaller business groups. I know that sort of small, maybe one sole trader type stuff, they sometimes get together as groups and that kind of thing. So I don't know if anyone knows of any of those locally that we might be able to get in touch with. I think we'll leave this as maybe one to think about. Peter, you've had your hand up quite patiently.
Yeah, it's really, I'll pick up from what Nikki said earlier on when she mentioned that you should be contacting ward councillors. You say you do, that they can take part in the LRGs and that the system is there, but pretty widespread. There's a lack of interest and lack of involvement by the majority of ward councillors. To what extent do you have contact with the actual borough council?
Yeah, we're quite well connected. It's not just something that we do spontaneously, but there's various sort of obligations of the development consent order that require us. So Katie's an expert in this area.
You're true, but do you, for instance, and going back to the PROWs, have you got a specific contact with the public rights of way officer on the borough?
Yes, so we will.
Well, you will, but have you?
So we would have to, we can take it away and check with the environment teams. The environment team would be the ones that would be engaging with the public rights of way officer at the council. We can take that away and I'll let you know.
So I mean, you should by now. I mean, you've had your alignments mapped out for 2 years now, and one agreed since earlier on this year. They're so close together that in many cases it's the same public rights of way that are on a threat of being severed. There must be a reasonable understanding of the extent to which realistically you can preserve by rerouting or making other provision particular rights of way, and there'll be others that are plainly it's going to be impossible, and you should be able to level with the PROW officer at the borough level, so she would then be in a position to field questions coming from the public. The borough council itself, I think there's a level of frustration between the borough council and East West Rail Co. I feel that they suffer the same sort of problems that we do and that we talk about, where we ask what we believe is a reasonable question and get told, well, the design's not mature enough to give an answer to that. The borough is run by the 27 maybe borough councillors, and just on one hand really are the number of borough councillors which seem to take an active interest in this, and that's changed since the elections earlier on this year. It's now changed the balance within the council. But it pains me that this route is going to go just past Biddenham, just past Bromham. They are detached areas. They're going to get severely impacted in due course with the extent of work that's proposed, and yet the trying to get interest within the borough council level and also the parish councils in those two respects is very difficult indeed. And there should be a mechanism where you talk, where you're interfacing with the borough council, and the borough council itself is seeking out feedback from its own via its own borough councillors from the community levels.
Yeah, Peter, I think that's a really good idea about, the councillors engaging with the council more about EWR. I think we are engaging quite a lot with the officers at Bedford Borough, and we're bringing them up to speed on the design. So I think it's now over to your side maybe to have that update with the councillors and the Bedford and the borough officers. I mean, I can go talk about host authorities and statutory consultees all day. But I think what would be really helpful for me is you all live in the area, you've got lots of local knowledge, I'm looking for those representatives. So you're all representatives of your local communities, but are there any other groups, community groups that are really well bedded into your communities that we can use as contacts to help spread the word about this project?
Yes, yeah, I know that's the aim of the discussion this evening, Katie. But you're talking to one of the most involved LRGs of the whole 20 odd, and it has the benefit of having parish council representation, borough council representation, whereas the more urban areas, they don't have parish organisations, they have borough councillors.
I'll just say though, I wonder, we can move on to the next question because I think we're kind of reaching a relative sort of slow point in this. I will say that some of the other groups have asked us, and we're happy to do it, to get in touch with specific rail user groups that aren't sort of available online for us to find, mum and baby networks that are quite active in the local communities that wouldn't have a relevant thing. Specific schools that they feel that there's, that proximity to the line perhaps wouldn't be the specific reason why we'd want to engage them, that sort of stuff. So can I suggest that we can move on to the next question, but I would really appreciate if we reflect on any, if having reflected rather, there are any other groups that you feel it would be helpful for us to reach out for, whether broad ideas or specifics. That I think would be amazing. I take the point, Peter, that your parishioners are very well represented through you and through other people in the group, but there will be groups that we haven't touched on in this meeting yet that I think would be quite interesting to explore. Let's move on to the next question. Gail, are you going to run this the next part of the session? Because I think this one we've covered, haven't we? Are you going to run the next part of the session?
Yes, I can do, yeah.
Wonderful. So I think if we go to Gail, would you mind picking it up then? Sorry, we've got a frozen screen here. I think we're going to reshare. So we're going straight through to slide 19 at this point. Let's see if this one sparks off any sort of interesting thoughts.
Brilliant, thank you. So as you, I think most of you will be aware that
forward. 19. Next slide. Brilliant. Thanks so much.
There we are.
It's 2A we need. There's a slide before that.
No, I think this is fine. Thanks.
Brilliant. So we do currently engage with people in many different ways, and that includes a newsletter. You're all aware of the drop-ins that we've delivered. And what we'd really like to know is a bit more about the newsletter, understand if you do receive it, if it's useful, what your thoughts are on that. But also, are there any other ways that we can reach out to people that we may be not doing already? For example, poster sites. I think at one of the drop-ins, someone suggested that actually everyone in the community goes to the local shop. So why not put some information in the local shop for us to get regularly? So it's ideas like that we're looking for, different ways that we can communicate that perhaps we don't already. I think it was briefly touched on earlier, you know, are there any Facebook pages that we should be reaching out to? Are there any newsletters already within the community that we can add stuff into, and so on and so forth? So I think there's a few ideas there. If we start off, do you all, a bit of a show of hands, do you all get the newsletter that we send out quarterly? Are there any reasons for that? Is it that you choose not to subscribe, or you weren't aware of it even?
So I get it, obviously we get it digitally. What about those who aren't digitally enabled? I have no idea that there is such a thing as a newsletter.
Yep, that's a really, really fair point. And we have actually sent it out, a hard copy out to people at their request as well. So yeah, that's a really, really good point. Are there any hard copy newsletters that get sent out? I know.
No, none at all. None at all. I mean, I could put hard copies up on village notice boards, etc. And yeah, why don't you join local Facebooks? I'm sure you will have some fantastic comments.
I mean, if we didn't join local Facebooks, could we provide the content for people to post on those Facebook groups? Because there's a lot of closed groups, there's a lot of community groups that we maybe can't reach out to. So if we provided that kind of content, would there be people available to post that out when we need to, for example?
I mean, I certainly post in our local area. Yeah.
Great, that's really good.
But I just worry about people who have not got the foggiest idea of what was going to happen. It's a massive.
Just to be really clear, Nikki, that's the exercise we're trying to do here. We are not trying to hide from people. We're trying to reach people. We understand, and we have exactly the same goal as you. What we're doing a lot of work in the background to try and do that. We really, really are. But we're asking for your suggestions and views as well. So how do we agree with you? We're concerned about finding people who don't know this is happening. Do you have views on how we can reach them?
Well, I say our local area is I would feel is reasonably well informed, just because of, you know, as Peter described, you know, the work that we do. Sorry, my voice is going again.
I'm sorry.
The work we do and the work we continue to do, but there's just literally thousands of people who haven't got a Scooby-Doo. I mean, I don't have the time to go around and door knock every house in Bedford, you know.
No, and again, that's sort of why that's definitely why we're having this conversation.
How about that you actually, you know, an email to every ward councillor, personal email to every ward councillor explaining, and then make sure that they're included in the quarterly newsletter as well.
They are actually. I think that's something that we just automatically do unless they opt out. But what we can do is go and check. We kind of do a dip test with a few of them and see if they're actually engaging with it.
You could do, and just say, look, we're really worried that this message isn't getting through.
I think that's fair. We've had some.
Sorry, excuse me.
Oh, Nikki, sorry. Gosh, it's that time.
No, it's fine. It's fine. I'll just go on to mute.
Alistair, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, thanks, Anna. Just an interesting point here. I mean, we do a parish newsletter. By the way, for those that don't know, I'm on Brickhill Parish Council along with Peter Lambswood, who's also on the core. Brickhill is, we've got 9,000 voters in Brickhill, so it's a big parish, right? And the proposed route goes pretty close to us. We deliver a hard copy newsletter, and we've just started doing it again, and there will be another one before Christmas for sure. We generally struggle for content to put in there, but I'm scratching my head to say, right, okay, I've engaged with East West Rail. Now, what can I tell people about what's happening? And I'm kind of scratching my head to put anything substantive down on paper to say, this is the state of play. This is what we're doing. So what have you got that would allow us to fill a few paragraphs of the parish newsletter to say, this is the latest state of play? I mean, we don't have to talk about it now, right? But yeah. I'm worrying because all I'm hearing is every question's a great question. Everything's, really, really good and so helpful and all the rest of it. But where's the beef, right? What can we actually tell people now? We can't keep telling them the design's in progress, the business case is in progress, everything's in progress, because they're not interested in that. Unless it's something really substantial, what can we tell them? Otherwise, we'll turn them off.
That's really fair, Alistair. And I think that's a challenge that we really do have in a big project like this. Things take a while, and the design internally, I can tell you there's a ton of work going on, but it's not stuff that we are able to talk about externally because it's ongoing work and it's not finished and it's draft and it's stuff that it would be irresponsible to put in the public domain in draft. That's I think the way that big projects move. So we do have a real challenge in being able to give people meaningful updates regularly, because there are moments where we are allowed and cleared and we have designed up documents and we've written them hopefully in a way that is intelligible to the majority of people reading them. In between that, updates are harder to come by. Having said that, we do all we can to pull stuff out and to circulate stuff. I'd be really interested to know if a regular spotlight on something that's already been in the public domain, but maybe people don't understand it in full detail or would like a refresher or something like that would be useful. We do a quarterly newsletter, so there is content coming out of the business about some of the activities that we're undertaking, so we could repackage that for you maybe, and get that over to you. There is stuff happening, but there won't be a sort of quarterly, this is the new design or this is the big thing like we did around route update announcement. But would there be maybe a conversation to have around what kind of information would be useful on a more regular basis?
Yeah, I'm happy to have that discussion, but I mean, this is exactly, you've just highlighted exactly why I think people are so suspicious about everything. And I feel rightly suspicious, because you quite rightly say you can't put draft documents out into the public domain because it probably be misleading, things might change, subject to debate, etc., etc., etc. So if you then wait until everything's finished and signed off and agreed, then you've cut out the consultation to a certain extent as well. You've not advised people as they're going along. This might happen, that might happen. If you're going to wait until the design is finalised and then present it to people and say, oh, and by the way, we've looked at all the rights of way and we found that actually that it's not possible to do anything with any of them. Sorry, then that's the sort of direction you seem to be going in, and that's where I'm concerned about it. And just as an example, how do you engage people when you can't tell them anything that means anything to them? Because you know what, Nikki's completely correct. A lot of people are not engaging with this because you know what, they've got lives to lead, right? They're busy people, and East West Rail or whatever is far out there. It's not in their consciousness. But you won't get through to people unless you've got something substantial. It's chicken and egg here, and I don't know. I can't suggest a way around it. I'm happy to have any debate, outside of this meeting about, what is meaningful content. Yeah. But right now, if I wanted to put half a page in the parish newsletter about East West Rail, I don't know what I'd put in there, apart from the fact that Sarah kindly came around and we had a look at some rights of way a couple of weeks ago, which was nice of her, and Eleanor, to be honest.
It was a very nice day. Thanks for the invite.
Yeah, that was, so we can put that in. But but what else? This is great. We would want to help publish stuff, but what have we got?
So that's a sort of a really helpful steer, Alistair, and I think that's one that I'll sort of take away and have a think about the best way of explaining it. And I think, or the best way of sort of packaging stuff, just to really be clear about what we mean about design. And I think, again, this one is quite hard to kind of properly convey the approach and the way that any project like ours would approach, and the way we're approaching. Our role is to take in a lot of information, including information from consultation, so people's preferences, people's thoughts, but also information that we might not have any other way. So we do get information through consultation that we wouldn't get any other way. And we also put that alongside economic data, environmental data, our own research, desk research, physical surveying, that kind of stuff. And to put that together and then to put out into the world what we believe at the point at which we publish that is the best option or set of options, and then ask people for their views. And so that's what we mean when we say we're working on the design. We're working toward the next point that we can do that. And the idea is, so in 2019, we had several options on the table. We asked for people's views. Their views helped us narrow down to a single broad area. The second consultation helped us narrow down to a specific alignment that we believe to be, at present, our preferred alignment. When we consult on that alignment, we may well get information back that causes us to review that, to review our preference. But so what we mean when we say the design is progressing, we're working towards the next time we can put something in the public domain that we think, given the information we have at that moment, is the best progression of the design, but that we are asking for more help to finalize and to go further. That just took me 2 minutes. And I feel like that's quite difficult sometimes to explain en masse to people, that that's what we mean when we say design.
I think it's important to say that it's a legal requirement for the design to be at a formative stage. So that means that it can still be shaped when we go out to consult. So it won't be a final design. There's still plenty of opportunity to shape the design. And there's also a legal requirement for us to consider all the feedback that we receive. And we have to show how we've considered that in our consultation report that's submitted as part of the DCO as well. So there's plenty of opportunity to shape the design. It's not final. But as Hannah explained, we're in the design development stage.
I think if I can just come in and also kind of from a design perspective, say there's besides kind of the legal requirement that Katie just highlighted, I mean, there's an iterative kind of process in designs. It's multidisciplinary, as Hannah alluded to. You define your track levels, then you define the structures, then you define the environmental impacts. Then some evidence emerges in terms of what the impact of that is, which gets you to kind of revisit your designs to a point where actually, you do an interdisciplinary kind of design review and you've got a solution that you think works. And then you go out and consult about it. I mean, I've really, it's a caricature of the design process, but I think, I appreciate that you think it's taking a long time for us to actually develop the designs. It is not as simple as one might think. There's so many different disciplines that feed into it. Just from the top of my head, drainage, flooding, environment, and all sorts of other aspects, like you mentioned, public rights of ways and balancing ponds and all of those things. So yeah, I think we are very actively working towards getting to a point where we can kind of share designs with you and involve you really in the design process. That's really what we're working towards, all of us within EWRCO. That's probably our biggest priority. So I think in some cases we've provided some detail, like in Bedford, there's detail about the number of platforms, the number of footbridges. We've gone as far as telling you kind of as much information as we can. We've shared as much info as we're reasonably able to share with you. In some areas where the detail is not there, we've just been very transparent and honest and said, look, we just don't have that detail. That's not to say we're not going to do it. That's not to say that we're not going to consider it. It's only that's within the process that's going to come out of the wash, really. And I think I think the one subtlety I'll make is that, yeah, as I said, it's an iterative process. We call it preliminary design. There's different labels to it, and it culminates to detailed design, which is after TCO is granted anyway. So, I mean, as I say, I've already given a presentation on kind of the design process and the COCP and how we incorporate all of those things in the design process. I'm very happy to actually share some of those with you as well. What it does is that it just tells you the process and the methodology for us to actually come up with the design elements that you are so rightly interested in, noise mitigation, impacts on yourselves and things like that. But yeah, I just trying to kind of, set the record that, it's not done and dusted, and we are working on it actively.
That help put stuff into context, Alistair? Because to me that feels sort of quite reasonable, quite normal for this point in a project, but I'm interested to know how that, yeah, what do you feel?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I appreciate the design aspects of it, the time it takes and all the rest of it. But I'm trying to put myself in the position of someone who's not engaged, who's got a busy life, who's got 100,000 different things, they're worried about. East-West Rail isn't one of them. And we're trying to say, how do we communicate with East-West Rail issues to somebody like that? And it sounds to me like right now at the moment, actually we can't, because there's nothing substantive that we can really tell them that's really going to impact them. My observation from parish council experience is that it's very hard to get people to engage literally with anything. They just don't do it unless they can physically see something from their front door, and then they'll complain about it. Frankly, that's basically the way it works out. Engagement in parish councils, or being a parish councillor, or feeding back into parish councils, you just don't hear from anybody. You just don't hear from them. It's not just an East-West Rail thing. It's hard to engage the community on things. It just is.
I think that's a really good point. I do. There's a balance in consultation fatigue and engagement fatigue, and sometimes there's no point in going out to people when we don't have anything to update on. I think engagement and interest will ramp up over the next year, because we will be going out for a consultation. So there will be a lot more interest, because we'll be doing a lot of awareness raising, publicizing of that consultation. So and hard copy type advertising as well. So it's not just going to be digital. So I think the interest will start to increase over the next year. Yeah,
I think just look back on sorry, I'm going to hand over to Gail in a sec, but what I think my final thought on this, where we sort of started with Alistair, is, anyone on this thing, if you've got pages that you need to fill in your parish magazine, I know from experience in my parish magazine growing up, and helping my mum run that you do often find the odd spare page, you do often find a little bit of whatever. Please ask us. We may have content. We don't expect you to not have your own views on it. We don't expect you to not seek views from the rest of your parishioners, but if it's helpful for us to do that, if you've got a spare page, please tell us. We're always up for writing content and giving content.
Thank you.
I'm happy to go.
Thank you. I'm just going to take us back a few steps, because actually that was all really interesting to hear, and I appreciate the conversation around content, and that content is really key, and it would be great to have lots of messages and information. But equally, what we have found through some of the feedback and the conversations that we've had from the drop-ins is that people are struggling to work out where to get that information. So whilst there might not be content that you think would be engaging at the moment, as Hannah said earlier, what we do want to do is make sure when that content's coming through, we can reach out to these people immediately, and we can make sure that we're engaging with as many people in the community as possible. With the best will in the world, there's quite often times where people say, well, I didn't know about these events. And that's where one of the conversations came up about, why don't you put a poster in the local shop? So I completely understand the comments about the content, but equally there are people out there that want to know where they can find information from, and want that guidance, and want to see things appearing, which is why one of the options here is local poster locations across the route and within the community. So yeah, just wondering if there's any more to touch on with regards to newsletters and ways to communicate. If not, we'll we'll move on to the events and the activity that we can do. Nikki?
Yeah, sorry guys, me again. I'll try not to cough. I just think it's really important that any information or any comments that are given out are actually, you can actually quantify them. I'm just thinking of the statement that Beth West gave out the other week, in which she said 70% of Bedford residents are in favour of East West Rail. Now, I'd like to know where she actually got those figures from. And has she just plucked them?
There's the research is published on our website. We'll send the link around following.
Yeah, but she specifically said Bedford residents, Hannah. She didn't say that spurious survey that was done in 2019, I believe.
It wasn't 2019. I believe it was 2021, I think. Let me, if you know exactly when that was said, please let me know. I'll look it up.
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's literally within the last week or so. I think
Sure.
it was after the declaration was delivered to Hugh Merriman, actually. But she specifically says 70% of Bedford residents, which I've never seen. I've never seen any figures to support that. So it's really, really important that figures given, statements given, are strong, and they're also correct.
Okay,
And
happy to put that one away.
that's-
We'll kind of look at that. Because I would agree with you. You know, in
Yeah.
comms terms, that's a proof point. So in comms terms, I would definitely agree with you. I think that's definitely a point worth making. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
We'll just go to Gordon and then we'll talk through this next slide.
Yes. Have you considered billboards?
Such good, yeah. So actually, yes, and it's something we're thinking about at the moment is out of what they call out of home advertising. Yeah, it's definitely something we're thinking about. It's quite expensive, as you know, so we've got to be very careful.
Especially where you think you might be putting the railway through. East West Rail want to put we're going to put a railway through here. You know, check this Facebook page and all the rest of it. Good way of getting your message across.
I mean, you're absolutely right. I would love to be doing stuff like that. I'm really happy to hear that as a suggestion. The issue we have is just being very careful that when we do it in a way that's just really careful with public funds. But yeah, I think that's a really sensible idea. That's a really lovely idea.
Thanks, Gordon. We'll just take a look at this slide. So we've spoken a few times about the community drop-ins that we ran at Route Update. We ran 12 of those across the route. They were incredibly well attended. It would be great to get your feedback on those. Were the venues suitable? Were the timings good? Were there enough events? What was the material like? You know, publicity of those events, but also, are those the kind of events that we want to see going forward? Is there an alternative layout? It'd be really great just to get your feedback on those. Hi, Nikki.
Hi again. Yeah, I mean, I haven't been to every event. I've been to several events. I honestly believe that people need people. However, I feel incredibly sorry for some of the people that you shove at these events because they don't seem to know the area. They're very young. They don't seem to be particularly well briefed. They're spouting the party line. They can't answer specific questions. And it leads to massive frustration. It leads to massive frustration from residents, businesses, etc. The Ravensden one in particular was I couldn't stay in there too long because it was so warm, so hot. It's quite small. But I do think people need people, but those people at the events must be able to answer questions, not just spout the party line. They must be able to empathise and sympathise with people. They must be able to not just say, well, I don't know because I don't work, I don't live here, or I've only worked here a month. It's not good.
Now they must be able to communicate, which they can't because they don't know.
So can I just sorry, Gordon, just unpick that a little bit. So must be able to communicate. Is that more about the messaging and the detail and the content?
Yes.
Perfect. Thank
you. You ask them questions and all they do is trot out the party line because they haven't got a clue about local specifics. And people have attended the meetings because they want to know about the local specifics. Simple as that.
Peter, you've got your hand up.
Yes, the series of public walk-ins that you did after the route update announcement was worth attending, but it's disappointing in that there wasn't an awful lot more information that was on offer than had been published back in 2021 in terms of how it was proposed to actually engineer these this alignment. The fact that you'd taken the opportunity to vary alignments 1 and 9 so that they combined for a brief period, that was new, but virtually everything else was as it had been discussed before. It was also the expectation of Beth West that East West Rail will be revisiting these public walk-in sessions in the autumn, to give more information. I suspect, in fact, that there's not a lot more information now than there was a few weeks ago. The other concern I've got is that during the sort of phony war period between the 2021 consultation and the route update announcement in 2023, East West Rail got up to a whole range of activities in connection with the DFT, and this really introduces the background to the question I've asked for later on to be answered. But it did throw uncertainty into the mix, because although the alignments have been fairly closely detailed back in 2021, since then a lot of the goalposts have been moved during the various exercises that were carried out, and we're not quite sure if the goalposts have been put back to where they were before. And so we seem to be on shakier and shakier ground the longer we go with this. So we're it's becoming more and more difficult to advise on how best to communicate with the communities when a lot of the things seem to be still floating downwards from having been thrown up in the air.
Okay, so I understand some of what you said there is for questions for later on, so that's fine. So I guess in relation to the events, for you, doing more drop-ins without any additional information wouldn't be worthwhile. That's what I'm taking away from that. Would that be right?
Well, people they'll always be interested in the height of embankments and the depth of cuttings in their local area. They were fairly well defined in the alignment diagrams, but now we have from on high in East West Rail saying, well, we're re-engineering those where we can to save money and to reduce the visual impact. So you're going to have even less answers than were provided before. That's the difficulty that we're in.
I think if we can separate there might be a specific point there about the methodology and all that kind of stuff, but I'm keen that we kind of try and give Gail some more meat to work with, I think, on the events themselves. But I think I can see Mo furiously scribbling points there, so I'm sure Mo's got something to come back on some of the content.
Not that I'm furiously scribbling points, but I think I think in 2021 we published plans and we consulted on them. After 2021 and in the space between 2021 and the route update announcements, there was a back check of a lot of the work we had undertaken. You're absolutely right. And you refer to it as moving the goalposts. You can refer to it as, a review of the project requirements in that space. So in that world, for example, the requirements for a clockwise train timetable was no longer imposed on us. So, you didn't need to have a train every 15 minutes exactly. You could have one every 13, every 16 minutes. I've kind of explained this before to you, Peter. I know I'm repeating myself, but just for the benefit of giving a complete answer. But in essence, that has resulted in changes to the designs. In the MVL area, some of the changes or the assumptions around Bedford Station and other parts of the route. To your point around kind of reviewing the embankments and minimizing the visual impacts, that is something that the project is currently doing, will continue to do. And I think continuously we'll do so and try and minimize that impact as much as we can. It is to the benefit of the communities. And in that, there is a requirement or a trial to try and reduce the amount of material that is excavated, the amount of import material, the height of embankments, refining the track alignments, and various other considerations that do actually come in. As I say, to my earlier point, it's an evolving design. And at statutory consultation, you will have, good detail as to what the proposals are in that area. However, at this point in time, that detail is being worked on. So I think from a strategic level, there's been changes to the scheme as a result of the ACP project, as we refer to it internally. But in essence, there's been changes. The goalposts have been, shifted or readjusted, and the designs are, have matched that kind of change in project aspirations and project requirements. So I think, I don't know if that answers your question. I kind of know where you're coming from. I understand you want to understand the height of embankments. You want to understand the visual impacts.
Now, Mo, we're getting dangerously close to you answering the actual precise aspects of the question that I put in, and it would be a shame to dispose of that whilst we're still wondering about the best way to talk with the communities. So I'm happy to leave it at that. But I'm linking the substance of the questions, the implications of what was behind the questions, and the difficulty, or the obvious difficulty that you have in presenting updates to the community as to what the thing's going to look like in the long term. We're working to a position where, at the statutory consultation, you will tighten up an awful lot of loose ends. I shouldn't think they'll be all tightened up, but it will give the public a new look of the project, which they'll be able to understand, hopefully, a lot more and appreciate the implications, so that they can give you some sensible feedback to that statutory consultation.
Okay, thanks, Peter. I'd just like to, if it's okay, spend just a minute or so more on this, just to see if there's any more feedback. Gordon, sorry, I can see your hand, and then we'll move on to the Q&A, because it does seem like we're kind of heading towards that territory. But Gordon?
Just a quickie. On the last meeting's notes, there was a post clarification on what was going to be carried out, because I'd asked a question about, or a question had been raised about carrying waste on the rail. And part of the post-meeting clarification was freight operators may choose to use freight paths to carry waste along the route. We are currently working with the rail freight industry to gauge the potential interest in running freight services on East West Rail. So that raises two questions. Why, after 4 years, have you not got things signed, sealed, and settled with freight operators so that you know freight will be carried on the track. The other thing is that basically you're going to build a railway, but you're going to have no control over it afterwards. So how do we put that across to our residents?
Okay, I think we are moving on to Q&A side of things. Gordon, can we just put a pause on just that? Because I just want to dig a little deeper into the drop-ins, if that's okay. Was there any other feedback that anyone wanted to give around the drop-ins? I mean, the Bedford one was really well attended. 440 people attended the Bedford one at Bedford Heights. Ravensden was incredibly busy. Gordon, is this event related?
It is actually. A couple of people mentioned to me that they were sort of almost intimidated by the presence of some of your heavies at the Tempsford drop-in.
Is there a question?
No, it's not a question. It's a comment to take away and think about if you're going to do anything in the future.
Yeah, a few people have asked about security. I think that's a really interesting point. So there were some specific events with some specific reasons why we had potentially more visible.
I understand why they were there, Hannah. I fully understand why they were there, but their presence was, well, these people said they found it intimidating. So
that's a good note. Thank you.
Alistair?
Yeah, just a quick one, Gail. I mean, I attended the one up at Manton Heights. I did speak to some people there who, in contrast to other people's experience, actually had been working on East West Rail for some time. They were at a relatively senior level. However, they still just trotted out the party line. So it was a bit disappointing, really. I didn't actually personally learn anything new. I did manage to speak to one person who will remain nameless, who did give me a bit more detail, and I much appreciate that. And it wasn't anything secret or whatever, but just someone who could speak a bit more around the whole rail industry issues and how East West Rail fitted into it, which I appreciated. But apart from that, I thought they were well attended. It's worth doing. Don't do them again unless you've got something more substantial to say, would be my advice. You know, and I had a couple of conversations with people, and they were more interested in getting a job on East West Rail than anything else. So, you know, there's a variety of people up there, I felt.
Okay, that's great. Thank you, Alistair. Nikki?
Yeah, thank you. Sorry, I've just seen on the typing, good knowledge from staff at events. I mean, we have said the knowledge was pretty poor. I'd hate for you just to be picking up the positives on this. I mean, Alistair just said, you know, the person he spoke to, he had a good experience with, but other people certainly didn't. I think it's very sketchy knowledge from some staff, very sketchy knowledge from others.
Yeah, we've got a couple of points there, Nikki, and there's certainly notes being taken. So we do understand what the meaning was behind that, and we'll just make sure that's reflected.
Okay. And as I say,
sorry, Nikki, just to clarify, yeah, I spoke to 4 people, three of whom trotted out the party line that everything's fine and everything's going to be re-reviewed and everything's going to be great. And one of them, I had a sort of a sidebar conversation almost on the way out the door.
Yeah, I mean, I had a conversation with one of the people, again, who shall remain nameless, and I felt incredibly sorry for them. This person actually said that they did not know how much longer they could stand there defending topics they didn't believe in. This person was almost in tears, and I shook their hand and basically wished them well. And this, you know, this person it actually quite upset me because they were actually upset. I felt that they were overwhelmed. I felt that they were having to spout party line when they didn't believe party line. I've got no idea if this individual still works for East West Rail, and I'm certainly not identifying them. But it did upset me.
Yeah, thanks, Nikki. I mean, I think to jump in slightly, I think we take our staff wellness and at these events really seriously, really very seriously. If people feel that they're saying things that they're not comfortable saying, that's not a position I want to put them in, and that's not a position I would ever put someone in a room and ask them to do. I've certainly had staff members crying because members of the public have told them they're too young, they can't possibly know anything, without really having a conversation with them, told them that, you know, they need to inspect their moral compass and things like that. That we have a lot of conversations around the well-being of our staff. We similarly have a lot of conversations around the well-being of people attending events as well, because we know that for some people this is really challenging, and we know that for some people who are minded to be aggressive on any topic, that having a public drop-in does tend to allow people to be aggressive, sometimes without really being engaged with the project. So I think there are a lot of there are a whole range, I think, of emotional challenges that we really try and think through when we're putting these meetings together. But I think that's a very helpful addition. If there are people being staffing meetings who don't feel comfortable with what they're talking about, then I think I would be surprised, because I know the colleagues fairly well, but I think that's helpful to know that you've had that conversation.
Yes.
I mean, I appreciate what you're saying, but in that, you know, in situations where people are losing houses and livelihoods and businesses, you know, they are going to be emotional, and they want answers, and it's going back to what we've said all along. You know, we're just having the same stuff all the time. You know, parish council meetings, I every month, you know, I do an East West Rail update, and it's yeah, you know, myself and Peter attended another group meeting, but you know, this month it was on communication and engagement, but I haven't really got much to say on this one, you know. And
it may be that this group wants to revisit the view that having a meeting every 6 weeks is useful. Again, I'll point out that most LIGs feel that quarterly is helpful. I don't think that precludes correspondence in between, but if the meetings are becoming a little repetitive for you, because as we sort of intimated earlier, we don't have a major update at the moment, then I think that might be something to consider as a group. We're comfortable still having those meetings if you do find them useful, but I will say that's just, you know, an observation from today's meeting, that there feel to be that's sort of been said a few times, that the maybe having these meetings this often isn't having the
they're worth having.
impact.
It was having, Anna, whilst people can come up with decent topics to have a meaningful discussion about.
But I think that's the point, is that, you know, having sort of explained the structure of the design process, and that there are moments where the design gets to a point where we can put our latest thinking in the public domain for review. In between those times, there are going to be relatively minimal updates. And I think when we first started these meetings, there were a lot of sort of pent up questions that this group had. And so I could completely understand why a more frequent, you know, meeting thing was helpful to answer some of those questions. If you feel that we're now going around in circles a little bit and answering the same questions, it's just an idea. It's just something to put out there. We're happy to meet every 6 weeks, but I don't want Nikki to feel, or anyone else to feel, that they're sort of losing their evenings and not getting that much out of it.
no, I never feel that, Hannah, and I'm with Peter. I mean, I think, you know, I think personally they are useful meetings. My frustration is, you know, the lack of information, but also, and again, it's something Peter spoke about earlier, the you know, the lack of participants as well. when you look at the the amount of people who are actually invited versus the amount who turn up. I mean, it's we kind of know each other by first names now, don't we?
I think and again, back to sort of the conversation we were having earlier, maybe if there are different ways of doing this, we've spoken about, maybe online would encourage more people, maybe in person would encourage more people. We've offered hybrid, we've offered broad ranges of topics. I'm really interested in what we can do to get people more engaged with the project. And I think that's, if you do take away one thing from this meeting to update people on, it's that we're really, while there aren't updates to put out in the public domain, now is the time for us to be getting our house in order and making sure that we've got the right people to talk to, that Gail's got a really good plan for the next set of events, that we've got, a really, really good mailing list that's as strong as it can be. So this is really the time for us to do a lot of that really strong foundation work and make sure that the maximum number of people are able to participate in the consultations when the next consultation comes. So I think that's and in the meantime, how we get people engaged with these meetings, I think, Nikki, again, we're really keen to see what else we can do. This isn't the only project that has these issues. It's quite common, as Katie was saying, consultation fatigue and engagement fatigue is quite common.
Yeah, sure.
But we just really want to do all we can to get around that, because we do want to engage as much as possible. Gordon, sorry, got hand up.
Thank you.
I think a good bit of the problem is from the initial meetings when we had very good attendances, but I think people got totally disillusioned, and that's a polite way of putting it, with Will Gallagher. And I think because he could not walk a straight line with his tongue, nobody believed him. And I think people lost interest then. And you're going to have a lot of hard work to try and recover that situation.
So I think, there's always a bit of a period at the beginning of these meetings being set up where, we're finding the right rhythm, we're finding the right kind of relationship to have. Is there something that would be worth a reset? Maybe we could offer something more informal in person to kind of get people together. Maybe something more formal would be useful to kind of bring people in. Maybe we need to kind of reset that moment, if you know what I mean, to try and encourage more voices. Or it might be that, you want to have a conversation away from East West Rail. There's people who come to these meetings an awful lot and, have that conversation without us in the room. To have a conversation and Johnny, I think that's again really helpful, talking about trying to communicate the positive case. I think we really want to be doing that more as well, and talking on a broad thing. But anyway, I think we're all ears basically, Gordon, because if it's helpful to reintroduce me or reintroduce another member of the team that you prefer to chair or something like that, then I think we can definitely work on that for sure.
Hannah, can I just make a comment just to the group, because it's come up in other meetings that they'd quite like to have just special subject matter experts, or some of our experts just come back and do like one-off meetings with you all, just to sort of get into the detail a bit more. So it's not really an LRG sort of business as usual meeting, but a topic meeting where we just bring somebody in. And we've talked about, other groups have mentioned this, so this would be between LRG meetings, but it's something we can think about, potentially bringing in one of our experts again, just to have longer with them, to have more conversation with them. So we're not interested in any of the other sort of LRG business, just talking about that topic. But if something the group is interested in, we can discuss that. Other groups have
like outside of the form, so it's not like a formal agendaed.
Absolutely,
more like
yes.
Kind of ask me anything. That could be interesting. That could work.
Yeah, if the group's interested in that, then let me know, and we can certainly look into that for you all.
Do that as a suggestion. Very conscious that we've only got half an hour left, and we've got sort of all sorts of different pressures on time, I'm sure. So we do have a kind of Q&A to move into. I will say before we move out of this kind of information gathering area, I think we will follow up by email, because I'm absolutely convinced that once everyone's kind of left the room and reflects and maybe sleeps on it, you'll think, oh, that, you know, the tuba playing ukulele orchestra would be great for this, or oh, there's that pub down the road where people play dominoes and that's a great group. Or oh, I wish I'd told Gail that, you know, that I really wish there'd been XYZ at the events or something like that. So we will circulate this for more. Before we move off and go and do the Q&A, are there any very specific sort of feedback, comments on the events, the structure of the events, or the structure of the communications generally, that anyone wants to make the points now? Alistair, you've got your hand up. I don't know if that's historic.
No, that's a new one. Sorry, slightly off topic, but you did mention. Yeah, sorry, Hannah, you did mention the possibility, and I certainly support that. If any parish councillors who are on the call want to have a parish councillor call on East West Rail, I'm more than happy to engage with that, because I don't think we do that very well, to be honest. I think it's kind of got overridden with other groups or organisations kind of to steer things. I mean, just for a bit of background, my angle is I'm agnostic on East West Rail for many reasons, but if it does get built, I want to get the best possible result for not only Bedford Borough but Brickhill residents. That's my angle on it. I can't influence whether it gets built or not, or indeed where it goes. But I want to keep an eye on it and make sure that we actually get something out of it. So that's my angle. So if anybody on the parish councillor front wants to engage in conversations around that and share some ideas about what things we're concerned about outside of East West Rail meetings, then I'm happy to do that.
Do you all have each other's details? I think GDPR stuff we always need to check before we share, but if you want us to facilitate that, we can. And not facilitate the call, obviously, I mean just put you in touch with each other and stand back. Or do you all have each other's details?
No.
I'm sure we can find them.
Okay, well, if I don't hear any objections, or if no one objects me in the thing, we'll make sure that we put everyone here on an email together, and then we'll stand back.
Thank you.
I think that'll be helpful. Thank you.
No problem. Should we move into Q&A type things? With the remaining time, would that be all right? Wonderful. Mo, it's your time to shine. Should we ask, these are rather than sort of reading out the questions, I guess, or does the questioner want to read the question out? So Peter, I think this one was yours.
I can read. Well, I can read it out if you haven't read it before. It was submitted.
So this is kind of in line with the original question that you just asked about the PWAS being revised, and as a result of the ACP, really. And I think I gave an example of where the ACP and some of the relaxations, the so-called relaxation project requirements, resulted in a change of our proposals, most notably the service pattern, for example. I mean, it was a consistent 4 trains per hour from Oxford to Cambridge, which is now actually changed. So, you know, there were some changes to it. You know, the ETR report is very prescriptive as to which changes were applied in that area. So I think is that kind of.
Actually, I just realised, Mo, that you've got the answer below there.
Yeah, I've got it kind of written. It's typed up, but I'm not reading it. It's kind of my bread and butter, Peter. So I'm just like, but yeah, in essence, that is the answer. You know.
I unfortunately got a list of people above the hang on. Right, our project objectives. That's your PWAS, is it?
That's it. Yes, that's the
Sponsors.
translation of that into project terms. Yes.
So they haven't changed. They're still extant.
They have changed. The requirements set upon us by the DFE have changed.
Sorry, it says you haven't changed them.
The project objectives haven't changed, but the PWAS has. So, in essence, the interpretation of the project objectives for the project itself has changed in the form of a PWAS. Sorry, that does sound complicated, but in essence, it is, a relaxation of the interpretation of what the department's remit to us has been undertaken. That's what's allowed the changes from the scheme from 2021 to now.
Have you got a part 2 of this and to answer the actual 3 questions that I detailed specifically? Or would you like me to ask them again now?
So the answer to that one is yes. It will be designed to W12 gauging. So the CS3 stages. The CS3 is a brand new railway from Bedford to Cambridge, and those areas that are new will be built to W12 gauging. And as you rightly identify, the existing areas will also be compliant with.
CS3, does that not include the opening up of the Marston Vale line?
And that's a CS2, formerly, so connection stage 2.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, then specifically, within CS2 and CS3 stages, those are the 3 questions.
Yeah, CS2, CS3, W12 gauging for freight loading gauge.
All right. So the W12, which basically is a size, and also there's a separate requirement for supporting axle weights.
Correct. Yeah, it's a loading as well as a geometric.
No changes there, and on all of the bridges that you build, and all of the bridges that may be along the Marston Fell line will be wide enough to accept gauge W12.
That is the working assumption. Yes. Yes, I'm afraid that. Sorry, I should not be answering. It's not my area. MVL is just outside of Bedford. I used to formerly work on the MVL, so I have working knowledge of it. Okay. But I should not be providing the official answer to that.
Okay. And will all rail underbridges be built or modified to provide standard overhead clearance for OLE? That's the overhead line equipment for electrification.
So that is the intention. To provide clearance for the OLE, yes, that is our remit from the department. Whether that means that we will have to rebuild or modify those bridges is yet to be determined, depending on surveys and kind of working out what the vertical clearance is. So in essence, there's an element whereby you might be able to achieve that OLE clearance without having an impact on the existing bridges. And hopefully that is something that's a positive for the community, and a lot of effort is being kind of undertaken in that direction, trying to minimize the number of structural interventions on bridges while also safeguarding the OLE clearance so that the railway can be electrified.
And right, the last one, will positive passive provision for future electrification be incorporated throughout the CS3 stages? I think the answer to that is going to be yes.
It's a yes, although I don't know what positive passive provision is.
Yeah, it's in your pre-bosses.
Yeah, so I think, sorry, I mean, it must be, so passive provision in terms of what we just discussed, yes, the ability to go out and electrify the railway will be taken into account, yes. So the railway can be electrified or would be able to be electrified as part of our designs.
It means your track bed is wide enough to accept future gantries without having to buy more land or widen cuttings.
So when, I mean, more is relative. I think our proposals for land take will incorporate those requirements for electrification.
Yeah. Part of the reasoning behind this question was a feeling that there have been some widespread economies made on the Marston Vale section, which has got a lot of the originally planned work not being done to it, on the basis that you can operate at a lower speed or higher speed than it does at the moment, which is 60 miles an hour, but not 100 miles an hour as was originally specified. And clearly, there are some bridges there which could have a bearing on whether or not you can easily run OLE if DFT eventually decide to have it electrified. So where can I find your current PWASs? Where they have changed from what was published in fair detail in Annex B to the 2021 Alignment Consultation Technical Report.
I'm not aware of that having been published just yet. I think it's being finalized. Again, I think that's one that's ever so slightly above my pay grade, and I can take it away and answer you on it. Your point on the MVL is correct. A lot of the interventions on the MVL have been reduced on the premise that we can reduce line speeds. I can't once again, I can't give you the exact answer, but I can actually get that across to you after this meeting in terms of which bridges require intervention and which bridges would not require intervention, subject to, of course, the caveats that we are going through a design period. There's survey work that's been undertaken, and there are bespoke OCS solutions, so overhead line solutions that can be achieved, that even if you don't meet the vertical requirements, you're still able to come up with a derogation whereby you're able to place some of the OLE equipment either side of a bridge, for example. So I think what I can commit to is to go out and give you as much information as I can on that matter or on that topic from my colleagues.
Thank you. That would be useful. I would appreciate that. But you'd appreciate this is yet another dimension of the whole project where we're a bit uncertain about the fundamental specification for it, and that makes it more difficult to be open with our communities.
I totally get that. I think 2021 consultation was quite detailed in that regard. There was a lot of, I think, in the Bedford area, for example, it had identified that the Amstel Road Bridge may need some work to it, or Caldwell Street. That being the reasonable worst case scenario, and in kind of planning and legal terms, that's got some sort of significance. I think I've tried to explain this, in other forums, and I hope the subtleties aren't lost on you. I know they're not, but in essence, we are obliged to develop some designs that are reasonable worst case scenario to get the planning process or the planning going, the refinement of the designs that will set the boundary for what can be achieved. In essence, what we get planning for is the only thing that we can really build. We can't go outside of what we plan for. So in essence, if there's a certain land take that's been provided within the DCO, we can go out of that and implement additional electrification work outside of the DCO process. So I've been quite convoluted, but in essence, what I'm trying to say is that the 2021 consultation, in many cases, gave you a good feel for the reasonable worst case scenario. And what we're going through at the moment is an element of refinement of designs with a view to perhaps reduce that uncertainty that you refer to. And in areas where we can or we have the certainty, perhaps remove that kind of reasonable worst case scenario and give you a more realistic one. So, to put that in perspective, when it comes to traction power, the very good example you're giving, in terms of environmental impacts, we're going to have to assume the reasonable worst case scenario. And in terms of vertical clearances beneath structures, we have to assume the reasonable worst case scenario. So what that means is that we assume the railway is electrified, to achieve vertical clearances, but also, we consider the environmental impact of diesel trains, if you see what I mean. That doesn't mean we will go out and run diesel trains. That doesn't mean we'll go out and electrify it, but it does give us the planning bounds or limits for us to be able to go out and kind of undertake both options. There is uncertainty, definitely. I'm not going against that. And we are trying to manage that in the most sensible way that we can. But yeah, I appreciate that there is uncertainty on local residents. It is translated to uncertainty. I appreciate that. And once again, a lot of effort, is made into kind of reducing that uncertainty as much as possible.
Okay then, Mo. I've got a last question. Really, is what is the degree of confidence held by East West Rail that the SC will actually start in the first half of 2024?
I mean, nothing suggested we wouldn't be able to do that. Hannah, you come in? Yeah, I think.
Yeah, I'll jump in. I was sort of, I think Katie's on the line as well. Yeah, the whole business is working towards that. As we've sort of explained before, the timelines until the timelines are set, the timelines aren't set. But yeah, the whole business is working towards that, and that's that's our window. So what's our degree of confidence? I guess I never say 100%. Maybe I'm a bit pessimistic, Peter, but it's what we're working at. So
okay,
yes. It's just my natural it's my natural pessimism that's stopping me from saying 100%.
Well, yes, I wouldn't have thought it was anywhere near 100%. But so at the moment, it's still when East West Rail say it's in the first half of 2024. It knows that it can launch it by the end of June.
As I say, that's what we're working towards. That's the goal. That's the plan. That's the aim. We don't have a firm date, so we're still working through the program. I mean.
Okay.
Now, why does that sound odd? It's just important to say that there is a tremendous amount of work that needs to be done to start a StatCon. There is just a tremendous amount of design work. As I was sort of saying earlier, we have to be very confident that the thing we're putting in the public domain is worth everyone's time having a look at. We've got to be very, very confident that what we're putting in the public domain is the best thing that we can. And if we don't feel that we can do that, then we'll have to be honest about it. But at the moment, everything is moving in the right direction and everything looks good from our side. But as I say, these things, some things just take as long as they need to take. So that's a natural bet hedger. But I would say, yeah, there's no reason why that I know of why we wouldn't be confident in that.
Thanks, Hannah.
Thanks.
Any more questions? You'll be pleased to hear.
Oh, don't say that. I just wanted you to finish that with Your Honour. No more questions, Your Honour. Just once in my life, I'd like to hear that. Would anyone else? I'm aware that we're entirely now at 8:30, and I do try and like to keep these to time if I can. Thanks so much, everyone, for your time. If you do have questions outside of this, of course, we please do email us. We've got a few specific actions to follow up, getting the team in touch with each other, all that sort of stuff, and working through the specific outcomes here. I am hoping that we get some more sort of ideas in the wash up, but understand that there's some specific interest of this group and specific circumstances of this group that might make that less than possible. So I think that it just falls on me now to say we will be, I think I'm right in saying, doing our usual circulation to get the topics for next time. Oh, Gordon?
Just a quickie, Hannah. Is it possible to for us to know what topics the other LRGs have been discussing?
Yeah, so meeting notes for all LRGs are available online anyway, so nothing secret.
Oh, So we can access every other LRG, can we?
I think so, Sarah, that's right. Yeah, Peter's
Yeah,
nodding.
actually,
He's in
Yeah,
there.
on that point, Gordon, we're going to have a list very soon on the homepage of the Community Hub, which will list all of the topics that have previously been done. So it'll be in one place. So
my
just give us a few weeks and that'll be there.
My instinct would be that this group's probably had the same. Yeah, you've probably had extra topics rather than been under topicked. But I think that would be an interesting thing to look at.
Yeah, it would be nice to know what topics the other LRGs have been discussing, and if we can if we can benefit from what they've been talking about. That was all.
I think I'm pretty sure that you'll have had all the same topics as them, but if there's anything in there you haven't had, I think that's not a problem. Any thoughts on that before we talk about next time's topic? So I think that one of the topics that we have given to another group, but we haven't yet given to this group, more timing than anything, is perhaps useful for Alistair and perhaps others, talking about, sorry, I misread that. That wasn't actually referring back to something Alistair said. I do apologise. There was a question about compensation for impacted communities and active travel examples from CS1. I mean, I'm not an expert in this, but I know that we're not at a position with the conversations having the department to be specific about compensation. Active travel on CS1, I think it would probably be a more fruitful conversation in the immediate. We can definitely bring someone in to talk in broad brushstrokes about. Oh look, Tabitha's already put the link in. Well done, Tabitha. Gosh, she's good. But I would suggest that active travel, and for those unfamiliar with the term, that's sort of walking, wheeling options. Just to give some background of what's been happening in the space that's already being built. That feels like it could be quite fruitful. Should we put a poll out and see what people want to talk about?
Yeah, do that.
And let's do that. Wonderful. Okay, thank you very much. So we'll see you in around about 6 weeks then. And we'll circulate notes and whatnot as per usual. And as I said, please, if you have any sort of last thoughts, any thoughts after reflection, that kind of stuff, please do get in touch with the team. And thank you again so much for your time. Really appreciate it. See you
Thanks,
soon.
Hannah and team. Thank you.
Thanks.
Great, thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks, Peter.
Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye.
Thanks, Alistair, Johnny, everyone.